Everybody, today we're in chapter 17, which deals with transformational change. Now today specifically we're going to be looking at different structures, from the matrix to the departmentally divided structure to the geographic and so forth. So we're going to be taking a look at some of the basics of structure, but we're also going to be taking a look at how we can transform those and change them. So let's go ahead and get started today with chapter 17. Okay, welcome back everybody, and today we're in chapter 17, moving right along, and today we're going to be looking at transformational change. Now, we've talked about transformational change in the past. There's not a whole lot of new material here, but one of the things that is evident in this chapter that we see are the different types of structures that I've talked about, and from maybe a geographically departmentalized organization to a functionally departmentalized or product-based structure. Today we're going to give you a visual depiction of these, but let's go ahead and talk about some of the basics, first of all, of change. Now, some of the characteristics of transformational change: it's triggered by environmental and internal disruptions. An example of an environmental disruption would be this COVID-19 virus that's gone around. No one expected that. 9/11, during the terrorist attack, no one expected that. Sometimes change can come about abruptly. It can alter everything that you do, and it can be unexpected a lot of times. Now, that's not necessarily the case with every change. Sometimes, and what we're learning is that change should come about naturally in organizations as certain environmental conditions warrant, but with drastic or dramatic events to take place, companies need to be poised to be able to meet the demands that the environment poses upon them. It can be initiated by senior executives and line managers, and normally senior executives will institute the type of change that will transform the organization. Line managers may do incremental changes, tweak and improve upon processes so that the company can maintain peak efficiency and effectiveness. But change involves also multiple stakeholders. It's more than just maybe the company. There may be drastic changes that change consumers, or maybe the residents within the community of that organization. For instance, they were putting in a Hooters restaurant in my neck of the woods in Horn Lake, Mississippi. It's there now, but before they were able to operate, there were a lot of Christian organizations that were opposed to it. So change can affect many stakeholders and many diverse types of people who we call stakeholders. Now, a stakeholder is any and everybody who has a stake in that organization. So it can involve the consumer, it can involve the company, it can involve government entities, it can involve investors or suppliers. All types of people can be influenced by change. Change is systemic and revolutionary, so it could be a part of an ongoing process, or it could be novel and profound. And then change involves significant learning and a new paradigm, and this is the challenge right here, a new paradigm. It is getting you to think a different way, to take away the old way of thinking and bring about the new. It's kind of like when you're saved. Paul says you're putting off the old man and you're putting on the new. The old things have passed away, and now all things have become new. You see life differently than you did before you became saved. And that's kind of how it is with new paradigms in business. It's not as profound as salvation, but still the premise is similar. Whereas you look at things differently from the way that you looked at them before the change took place. So that's transformational change. Now, integrated strategic change, it's a deliberate, coordinated process that leads to gradually or radically systemic realignments between the environment and a firm's strategic orientation, resulting in improvement in performance and effectiveness. So this isn't just a knee-jerk reaction to things. Integrated strategic change involves a planned, a deliberate realignment between where you were and where you want to be. And we're going to see that here in the next slide. As you see, the integrated strategic change process, and essentially what you see here is the status quo. This is the current strategy. This is what you're doing so far, and this is the shape of the organization as it exists. So you analyze this. This is what you do to begin the change process. Now you go into the strategic plan, which is implementation. Steps 3 and 4 involve designing and implementation, and it's the strategic change plan here that you're looking at. Where are we now, which is right here, and where do we want to be? And we've talked about that. Right here, you have a gap, and filling that gap will get you from where you are to where you want to be here. And this involves the strategic analysis. It involves planning, coordinating, organizing with the vision of this, the second strategy, or the end game in mind. So the strategic choices that you make will determine the new strategy and the future organization. Now let's talk about some of the structures that you will see in an organization. This one is called a functionally departmentalized structure. You see research, you see manufacturing, engineering, marketing, finance, human resources. Each one of these are separate and independent entities. They all report to the president, but each one has its own function within the organization. Now, some of the advantages, you see technical specializations. Now, if you remember, what was the belief of people like Frederick Taylor and Max Faber, the old way of doing things? They wanted you to specialize in certain things so that you could become the expert. And that's what you see here. Research knows research, manufacturing stays within the manufacturing realm, engineering, marketing, finance, all of these are resident experts in those particular fields. If I'm the president and I want to know what's going on with finance, I don't have to worry about trying to find them. I know exactly where to go. I'm going to the VP of Finance. You can enhance career development. That's right, because you are promoting within your department, supports the development of common processes, and as long as everything stays the same and there's no need for change, then that may be a good structure for you. The disadvantages, you emphasize routine tasks. Again, you're only doing what your function entails, marketing, HR, whatever. You're looking at narrow perspectives by managers. You're not looking at the organization as a whole. All you see here is your own little realm. And that causes really the conflicts, the arguments, the disassociations, and so forth. You cut across functions, making coordination and scheduling more difficult. That's right. If you're only in your department, you're only talking to your people. You're not really cross-communicating. And that was one of the biggest issues that I found working with organizations who were trying to change. They didn't communicate because they were all isolated within their own departments. The contingencies, you have a stable and certain environment, which is true. You pretty much know what everybody is doing within your own department. You have small to medium size. Really, I've seen this function in major corporations. Routine technology, interdependence within functions, and that's right, but you're not interdependent within the whole organization. You don't see the systems approach really with this. And goals of efficiency and technical quality, and you have that, but there's little room for innovation and creativity, and you really don't foster an environment for change because people become entrenched in their own specialties, and it makes it very difficult for them to be able to branch out and to be inclusive in their strategy. They're only looking at things from their own specialization. The divisional structure, you have the president, and then you have vice president of product A, product B, product C. This may be, let's say, Ford Motor Company, and you have Ford's line of automobiles, then you have their trucks, and then you have maybe their electronic cars. So you have different products within one organization, and it's spread out as such, and each one will have a manager for their different functions. And some of these advantages, you have interdepartmental dependencies, which reduces some of the complexities in an organization. You do have diversification, and you ensure accountability by departmental managers, and they promote delegation of authority. So you really aren't managing things from a VP standpoint. You have managers of different realms that take care of their own specific product. And then you have heightened departmental cohesion and involvement at work. But again, that goes with the department. Now, the disadvantages, you can use skills and resources inefficiently. You can be doubling work, duplicating work. If you are working on a prototype automobile and the other department and the other department are working on similar ideas, if you're not talking, you can duplicate your efforts and get in trouble very quickly. That's what Motorola did when they were the industry leader in the mobile communication industry. They developed 13 research and development teams to come out and produce the latest things in mobile communication. Well, the problem was that no one was talking to each other. Each development team was isolated and insulated, and come to find out they were working on similar type things. And as a result, they lost market share. They lost their place in the market to Nokia, and it was really a disaster. So talking and communicating is important, but you may lose that. Contingencies, you have unstable and uncertain environments that can affect this. Large size can be affected by this, and normally if you're within an organization that has different product lines, you're going to be a large company. Technological interdependence across functions, depending on how much and how well you use the technology, that could be a pro or a con. And goals of product specialization and innovation, and we're going to talk about that, especially when it comes to global industries. The matrix organization, we've already talked about that once before. You don't segregate out. You have what's called project managers. And these project managers will take on to the different departments instead of everything being functionally departmentalized. You have a program manager that sees it throughout the end, and they go through the different departments to do that. And here are the advantages, just a few of them. You maintain consistency by forcing communication between managers. You are not going to each department individually as an interdependent, isolated entity. They are part of your research, or they're part of your product management process. You use people flexibly, and you can adapt to the environment. Some of the disadvantages, it can be difficult to implement, especially if you are functionally departmentalized. It increases role ambiguity and stress until you get used to that type of structure. And then some of the contingencies, pressure for high information processing capacity, and pressure for shared resources. As you go through with project after project, there's only so much to go around, so you have to be able to budget your resources from a managerial standpoint and make sure you get your product through. Process-based, you have a senior management team, as you see, and everything goes through the process. The first process is development and implementation, I guess, then acquiring and fulfilling orders, and then support for customer usage. You're not really looking at any one particular project, or you're not looking at one department. You are taking this product or service through the processes of raw material to finished product to where it's out with the consumer. And you see again some of the advantages and disadvantages and contingencies. You have lower costs due to overhead. You're not really using things that you are not in need of. You reduce boundaries between departments because you're working as a process now and not as departments. And then some of the disadvantages: you can duplicate scarce resources. You can take longer to make decisions. Sometimes it requires new skills and knowledge to manage those lateral relationships in teams. You're no longer the head person there in HR or marketing. You are there as part of the process that it takes to go from your area to the next area. And then some of the contingencies: it's moderate to large size, non-routine and highly interdependent, and customer-oriented goals would be the goal of that. With customer-centric structures, you see here, and I'll let you guys read these, you have product-centric, customer-centric, and the goals, source of value, and so forth. So there's nothing really profound in this, but I'll let you guys take a look at that, and then we'll move on to multinational designs. Now, a multinational design, you're looking at the characteristics of a multinational corporation. They are decentralized. The goals are responsiveness through specialization. And you implement the multinational orientation with intergroup relations, local management. You can facilitate management, development, reward systems, and strategic alliances. A multinational corporation is one where the products are similar throughout the globe. Ford Motor Company has the same truck in Japan as it makes here. So you can decentralize the organization and use one model for production and processes and so forth. You don't have to customize. A transnational organization is where you are tailoring your product. Now, with the transnational, you are looking at specializing your product depending upon the country that you're selling the product in. For instance, the way that we sell refrigerators here in America, the normal refrigerator in the kitchen is not the type of refrigerator that they use in Japan. The type of refrigerator they use in Japan would be more or less like the compact college dorm room type refrigerator, because they don't buy groceries. The typical Japanese do not buy groceries for the week or for the month. They buy really for the day. So they don't really see the need for a big refrigerator. And also, they want to be able to have the refrigerator within the convenience of maybe the living room. They may not put it in the kitchen. They may have it in the living room, and in the living room, it needs to blend in with the furniture. So there'll be different designs and colors and so forth, more than just what we offer here in the States. So having it tailored, you have different structures that will be required and different processes to produce those products than you would see maybe in the other types of countries or other types of organizational or corporate strategies. Today we saw the different types of structures. Now, somewhere along the lines you fit in, or your company fits into one of those structures. And it's interesting to know how those structures can either enhance or inhibit you being able to accomplish your goals. So I may have you do in the interactive form an assessment of where your organization is at. How are you structured? And does that structure support the type of operation and objectives that your company or your ministry may have? Well, we had a good run at it for Chapter 17, so we're going to take a look at some innovative ideas tomorrow, and we'll come back next week with Chapter 18. God bless you.